Greetings, friends. I'm Galen, and welcome to the Gaming Adventure and Discovery Explorers,
a show about our adventures and discoveries as we explore the world of gaming. I'm Chad.
On today's show,
the Uncaged Anthology, Volume 1, and running one-shots.
Let's explore. Chad, how you doing?
I'm great. I had such a gamerific couple weeks.
Gamerific. I'm adding that to my lexicon now. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm excited to talk about it. But I was sad because you missed a first Saturday of the month Mornheim Halcyon game.
I did. I had some family business to attend to. Tell me what I missed. What happened?
Yeah.
Inform
so
me.
The first thing I had to manage was your absence and your character's absence.
Yeah.
This time I decided to go the Spock mode route.
Okay.
And that's titled after, I think it's a third season Star Trek episode where Spock's brain was stolen and he just walked around and followed them around as they retrieved his brain.
Yep.
And so I thought it was actually pretty easy for Mend, because Mend is a Warforged already. It seemed a little more intuitive to me to stir things up that way. As you might remember, and those keeping track at home might remember, the last session ended with the party in a bedroom in an underground city-ish, in a house something, with ghouls kind of scratching at the door, trying to get through. And the party was not at full strength, so there was some concern that would be a big problem. And so, picking up where we left off, Mend went into a catatonic state and could follow, and was able to follow the group and maybe follow the simplest of commands, but not really do anything else. So I think the question for us to think about is, what was going on? What happened to Mend to cause such a state?
That's so interesting.
Yeah. Do you have any immediate thoughts about that, or just to put you entirely on the spot?
The initial one would be that maybe his divine connection, his antenna or something, his communication went haywire, or he lost it. He lost his connection maybe to his deity and didn't have a sense of self, maybe, because of that. Nice. That could be fun.
I might also, maybe to even add to that, think he might be experiencing visions at the same time, or layered on, and having some level of experience. And I was even thinking about including visions, some kind of Lilith, who is missing also from the party's perspective, which I might be an interesting later on. So
that'd be fun. Oh, I love it.
So I'll flesh that out. That's the direction we'll head next session. So
that's great.
So ongoing. What I did not expect was that the party did not go out and face the ghouls at all. They went the other direction. They went down to the basement of the house to a well, which they knew left the house and went into an underground waterway. And I wasn't completely surprised by this. I had prepared for that the session before. And so I had already looked up the suffocation rules and had those at hand. And they're very generous in 5th edition.
Right.
You have actually it's based on your constitution score, I think. And you have at least several minutes. So they went down into the well and swam downstream, not upstream, which I was a little surprised by also. I thought they would have maybe tried to get out since they were kind of beat up. But they went downstream.
Yeah. And
were dumped out into a small waterfall and dumped into a cave. And they immediately were surrounded by giant rats that they fought. And some normal rats too, I think. And they were in a cave with the water kind of pooled and continued on deeper into the dungeon. But they would have had to squeeze through the opening to follow the water. But there were passages that left this room that they had found themselves in. So they decided to explore that first. So they explored this kind of small part of the dungeon and found the 3 of the members of the Waterbraid family, the 2 parents and one of the I think the 10-year-old son, hiding under a blanket, this magical blanket that was concealing them kind of poorly, but it was kind of a fun thing where there was this irregularity in the wall that the party had to sort out. And so the family was very thankful and very panicked, and there's still a missing child, however, who they were separated from
Ah.
Yes, the younger daughter. Mm-hmm. So the first idea was just to get the family out for now, but they didn't know how to do that. They still don't know how to get out because they were teleported into this dungeon in the first place. Mm-hmm. So they continued to explore, and they found a wet portion of the dungeon wall in a nearby room. And being adventurers, they screwed with it, and this discovered that it was 2 gray oozes. So this was inspired by our conversation about oozes.
Oh no!
last episode or 2 ago.
Yeah, right.
And so they were able to. They were very scared of them, and they didn't. It was fun because the players nor the characters knew what was effective against oozes, and so they were like trying fire and force, and one worked and one didn't, or one kind of worked, and all that. And I think someone Tenley's armor got injured. By 1 point, yes.
And, oh no!
And it's just so funny. And this was the same thing that happened to me that we talked about, where that 1 point of armor being damaged and less effective made it almost garbage. Like it was like he had to get that armor replaced immediately. Yeah. It was untenable. So good news for the party, though, that the Waterbraid family, who they have rescued much of, are wealthy. So, anyway, so they. Turned out the oozes were concealing a secret passage. Behind that was a spout. Not a spout. There was no kind of water spouting out of it, but a chimney.
Okay.
The chimney led back up into Mornheim, and it was very tall, so they had to climb all the way up, and they wound up in a neighborhood unknown to them, but not that far from the Waterbraid's home. So they were able to get the family out. They returned and were able to take a long rest at the family home. They learned that the armor that had run around and fought you guys and tried to kill you before, that Lilith had activated, only follows their instructions or reacts when interfered with. And so, as you might remember, Lilith had touched it when she broke in, and that had activated it from the get-go. And they also were able to confirm that there's a clock that, depending on the setting of the clock, determines where the tapestry teleports to. And that the Waterbraid's older son, who you all had killed,
accidentally,
had used it to go, to meet up with that necromancer, and the family had followed. And so the clock was currently broken because it had fallen during the kind of shenanigans when you all entered before. So that's how the other members of the party were able to follow you without being separated. The Waterbraids resupplied you guys, gave you some healing potions, which are hard to find. There's like an alchemist who only has a few healing potions at a time. So, but from a metagame perspective, you were the healer and you were not there, and I didn't want to fool with running your character without you. So the alchemist had potions. And so replaced the armor that Tenley had that was damaged, gave him some lanterns and some sack lunches, and begged them to go back and search for their daughter. So it was still missing. And so the party was able to all level up because some of them hadn't had a long rest since they had enough experience for level 3.
Yeah.
And you might be in that case too. So that's something to keep in mind. So you were, even in your catatonic state, able to level up.
Okay.
And
awesome.
You'll be good to go for next session.
Cool.
Remember this note? I don't remember where they found it, but they also came across a dagger of blind sight.
Oh,
so that's a magic dagger that allows blind sight. That gives blind sight. So it's only like 30-foot range, so that it's not a great scouting device, but it's sure a lot better than wandering around in the dark or broadcasting to everyone in the Underdark that you're there.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it counts as a magic weapon if you find a monster who is only harmed by magic weapons.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so the group then returned. Essentially, they returned through the tapestry back to the basement, cleaned out that room of zombies that you had found the previous session. There was like 6 of them. One of them, however, one of those zombies was a Yuan-Ti zombie.
Oh.
Yeah, so the snake people.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, mechanically, it was just a zombie, but... that was a clue that there are other kinds of undead down here than just humans or elves or whatever. So
I like that. That's intriguing.
That was it. So they ended where they started, in the bedroom, in the balcony bedroom. With the ghouls were, however, actually this was an important thing. The ghouls did not break through. I think evidence suggests that once you all left that room, they got bored or whatever. We don't know why they left actually, but they left shortly after the party departed. So.
I like the idea that they got bored. It's like, oh, there's no one there. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and ghouls are just all about eating. They're all about the food,
exactly.
right? And they're ravenous, right? And so, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I kind of like the idea of ghouls having a relatively short attention span.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially
Very
because they don't know you
instinctual,
guys.
yeah.
They just saw like they didn't. It's not like they have a reason to go after you specifically.
Right.
Even though ghouls do have a little bit more intelligence than zombies or skeletons. So anyway,
Well, that sounds like a fun time. That sounds like a good one.
Yeah, it really. I think 4 players is my number one choice. We had 3, which is fine, and that's a good game. But it goes a little faster too with 3 players.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that sounds good. I also understand that you ran something else between our last chat and today.
I did. I finally managed to run some of the material out of the Uncaged Volume 1. Those on video. So it's this book with this wonderful art of this Medusa. And this has really been getting a lot of buzz. Volume 1 came out a couple months ago, and I think Volume 2 just came out maybe in July, and there's a Volume 3 in the works as well. It's a collection, so it's an anthology of original adventures for D&D that subvert and reinvent tropes around female mythological figures, creatures, monsters, and figures.
That's great.
And
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. Many of the creators of the adventures are women or non-binary folks. So it's a great project.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump in here and ask you where you purchased this.
Yeah, so this is available on the DM's Guild, and you can get it just in PDF if you want. I like my hardback books. I like to have the artifact of it. I like to hold it. I like to put it on my bookshelf and look at it. I like to read it in bed. And I don't really have a great device for reading digital.
Yeah.
So print on demand. I think it's print on demand. I'm not certain of that. But anyway, so I just bought that. One thing that bugs me, though, and this is, and I don't think this is an Uncaged issue. I think this is mostly a drive-through RPG issue. You have to pay extra for the PDF. Even if you buy the printed version. Yeah. And, like, I get that PDF is an expression of the talent. You know, I don't think PDF should be free. You know, I think I get, you know, if it's a hundreds of pages, that should be, you know, a fair price.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel like I paid the fair price.
Right.
And,
yeah, I hear you.
You know, and so I didn't pay the extra for the PDF. It's like $5, and it's not like $1. It's like $5 or more for the PDF. So, small gripe. I don't need them both. I don't really read PDFs much anyway, like I said. So anyway, so maybe before I talk about the adventure, I'll talk about the book itself just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so this is the only adventure from it that I've run, and it's mostly low level. They're all pretty short adventures. Some of them might take a couple sessions if you were so inclined. And so one of the great things about it is it's a great plug and play. Great for one-shots, great for if you just have a space in your adventure and you just want to put something else in there. It's got a lot of different things and a lot of different material that you can use that with.
Okay.
And because it's an anthology, the flavor of all the adventures, this is actually a plus and a depends on how you see it. The flavor and the tone and the kind of quality is pretty variable from adventure to adventure.
Okay.
You know, the art is different. It's not cohesive on the inside as far as kind of the art direction. It's not, you know, the tone of the adventures, like I said, are all very different. And so the diversity on that is great. You know, it contrasts with, say, a Wizards of the Coast book or a Kobold Press book where, you know, you buy a, you know, multiple 100-page book and it feels like a thing.
Right.
This one is not a thing.
Right.
It's many things that have a shared theme.
Sounds like they're really leaning into that anthology nature of it.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And so some of them I like more than others at just reading through it. Some catch me more than others as the nature of an anthology. I think they all look good. You know, what I really like that this book does in a way that I've never seen before is it just calls out really specific things about the adventure right at the heading. So there's the header at each one. It says like what the primary creature is, which is just a little unusual, and the levels. And this is another great thing that I really appreciate. It has a content warning at the heading.
Yeah.
So I just flipped this open to another adventure that I haven't run or even really looked that closely at. It's the creature is Dryad. It's called From the Forest They Fled. Levels 1 through 3. Content warning: forest fires. And I think, you know, I think that's just great because you just don't know what people might be bugged by.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, on the flip side of it, if you want an adventure that taps into that
right
in a primal way,
exactly.
If you're like, oh, I want to for whatever reason, I think knowing your group is key as a dungeon master.
Yeah.
You can have that information right again.
Yeah, I was really impressed when I just went to the DM's Guild site, and down at the bottom it has content warnings for the adventure, and it lists maybe all of them, I don't know, but it might be all of the different content warnings for the thing. And I think that's absolutely fantastic, exactly for the reasons you just said. For people that may want to steer clear of that, or for people that may want to use that in their campaign, or run an adventure around it.
I'm curious, Galen, as a person who runs in kind of the theater circles here in Seattle, do you see anything like that happening in the theatrical world?
Yeah, it's some of the basic stuff that you'd think. There's always warnings if there is gunfire in a play. Theaters have now also started to talk about if there is just loud noises in a play for people that may have some sensory issues.
Yep.
There's always been warnings for like strobe lights and that sort of thing. The last play for the company that I was involved with, we had a content warning for nudity and racist and homophobic language that was used in the play as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there is a trend to have more of that now, which again, I think is great.
Used to and still sometimes see it as trigger warning, and like TW, and I think they use CW, content warning, which actually, as I think about it, is I think a stronger position because, trigger has a pretty specific psychological definition that has been a little watered down in a way that muddies the issue. It's a little like service animals. There are people who really are triggered in a very a way that really impacts them, really. And then there's just stuff that you just don't want to deal with.
Right.
And they're different. Those are different spheres. And so I might not enjoy forest fires. That may be a topic I like. I don't want to adventure around that. It's just not fun to me. But I'm not triggered by it.
Right.
Just start by telling people the information and, whatever. It's good.
Exactly.
Another couple words about this. One of the ways I like to frame kind of talking about a product is, should you buy it? Should you buy this book? And I think, right out of the bat, just to call it out, if you want to support creations that are from folks who don't usually have a voice, if you want to see people who play with these tropes, if you want to see that in D&D and you want to support that, you should totally buy the book, like 100%. If you like, having an anthology, if you like having that variation at hand with little, quick, easy to run adventures, totally should buy the book. If you're looking for an adventure path or a mega dungeon or something like that, this is not that book. This really isn't a book that I would recommend for someone who expects to run the adventures and take the same party through all the adventures. You could, but I think it would be really discordant, and you would, as a DM, would need to. I don't know. You would need to, but it would be your job to make it feel like one adventure. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I do that all the time.
Yeah, and if you enjoy that kind of work, then plus.
Exactly.
So I had a question.
Please.
Also, if I can. You mentioned that most of the adventures in the book are low level. Is it your sense that this thing is made for people who are newer to D&D?
Oh, I have to admit I haven't spent a lot of time with the higher level adventures. And I realized that comment might have been where my attention went. No, because I'm flipping towards the end, and it's mostly like level 10 and lower. Though there is a level, there are a couple of those higher 10 and above. Like 1 or 2 adventures are 10 and above. I think generally, yes.
Okay.
I think another way to frame that is players who don't want to spend a lot of time with the crunch and combat tactics.
Yeah, okay.
Which may or may not map to experience,
Yeah, sure. Sure.
And so I think it's not necessarily rules heavy, and it's not tactical heavy. Yeah, so I think that answers. I think that answers the question.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Because I realized when I was using it, I knew it was going to be for a one shot because it wouldn't fit in the Mornheim Halcyon campaign. And for one shots, I think level 5 is kind of the highest you probably want to get for one shots because you have a bunch of players who are getting used to their characters and.
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, and so it just slows it down. It makes it harder to end on time and whatever. So I had really honed in on that lower level. And that's another little critique is that at the headers are a little irregular, and I think this is a really strong book, but it's not quite edited to the degree that a lot, if it was a completely professional printing press probably would do.
Mm-hmm.
Small example, not a big deal, but the adventure I ran, The Banshee's Tale by Annabeth Lennon, really, really good adventure. The header says levels 3 to 5, but then in the synopsis it says it's intended for 3 to 5 characters of 5th level. And so that's an important difference.
Yeah, it is.
This was designed as written in the synopsis, 5th level. I think 5th level was pretty important because there's some tough stuff.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Not a big deal, but if you really like that, like if you're really persnickety about that sort of thing, that this might not be the book for you.
Mm-hmm. So one more question before we delve into the Banshee's Tale and how it went for you.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the question that you try and answer, should you buy this book?
Yeah.
So what was it about it that intrigued you? What was it that got you to pull the trigger on the purchase?
It was getting a lot of buzz on D&D Twitter was part of it. And also it was being promoted in a time where I think D&D Twitter was having some really kind of a dark phase. I think that the stuff from that creator who was outed for abuse and stuff.
Yep.
It was shortly after that, and so that kind of left. I think a lot of us had kind of a dark taste in our mouth about, like all this stuff that I like a lot. I'm like, oh, now it just has this taint, and it's a little bit of a beacon of light from my perspective.
That's great.
That's like, but here's a thing by people who are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into something, and they're positive and really exploring some interesting ideas that I wouldn't probably think of.
Yeah.
So that was the main thing, and to be honest, the fact that I could get it in a hardback might have been the tipping point. If it had just been a PDF, I probably wouldn't have bought it, even for a reduced price.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, because I just don't use them.
Yeah, right. Exactly. If you're can't use a thing, then you're not going to get it, right? So
I feel bad when I hear reviews about things I really like, and I'm like, oh, it's just PDF. Like, it'll sit in my Dropbox forever.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, I got it, and I ran it. You might remember, it was a couple episodes ago, I was at Critical Northwest, which is the regional Burning Man event in Washington State. And I had played a little D&D, and it was like an 8-hour session. Wasn't super enthused by it. And one of the people at the table they're not a big D&D person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was a little like, oh man, if that is their first experience in D&D,
right.
I just want them to actually play D&D.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that was one of my motives. And there's always people that I'm thinking I wished I could game with. And D&D was just a big deal at Critical this year, and it was pretty easy for me to come up with a list of people who I thought might want to play, who I'd met there. And some I'd known for a long time, and one I have gamed with for years, probably 10 years, more than that, 12, 13 years we've gamed off and on together.
Yeah.
And some new people, too. So that's kind of what motivated me. And so I knew it'd be one shot. I knew I didn't want to start up another campaign. Like, that's a hard thing for anybody to kind of sign on to.
Yeah.
And them, too. Like getting players for a commitment like that is a whole nother level.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So that's how I formed the group. It was everyone at Critical, and there was one person who never responded, which is totally fine. And that still had the group of 4 if they all showed up.
Yep.
One person was a little non-committal. I was a little worried about.
Yeah.
They were like, that sounds fun, which is good. That's good. And
right.
And then they were like, okay, go ahead and schedule it without me. I'm pretty busy. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
okay.
And you've got a choice when that's the answer. It's like you either try your best and have a chance.
Yeah.
Or you don't have a chance.
Yep.
And I was like, no, I really want to game with this person. I'm going to give it a chance.
Yeah.
I'm going to give them a chance. Give it a chance to work. And just know that if it doesn't work, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And not sweat it. Even the week of when I was confirming, I didn't think they would come. And they were like, I should be able to. I'm like, okay. All right.
Right.
And they did. They were actually a little late, but that was okay.
Great.
It was fine. And we had fun. And that's part of the problems with hobby gaming, is that you need some commitment.
Oh, definitely.
Those of us who are trying to plan, like, at least give me something to plan around, But anyway, like I knew going in that this is kind of the way it is.
Right.
So I gave everyone the choice. They could either bring a character that they had already created themselves.
Okay.
Or they could come an hour early and we would create characters together.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I have to admit, an hour is not enough time to create a 5th level character if someone doesn't know the rules very well.
Yeah, if you're brand new, yeah.
Yeah. 3 out of 4 of them showed up an hour early-ish. Pretty close.
Okay.
But one actually brought another character from a different adventure. that he had.
Oh.
So it was 5th level, and he asked in advance, and I was like, yeah, like that's old school. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's some curves around that, which I think is all good. It's just a little unusual in 5th edition because everyone just runs the same campaign usually.
Yeah.
His DM had house ruled the dwarven characteristics.
Okay.
Into giving him some sort of like once per day or once per rest stone skin ability.
Okay.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's okay. Like that seems pretty balanced. It's like
Yeah.
a little like having a potion or something. Like it's not going to break the game.
Right. Right.
So that's fine. That's fine. And he had like a boon from a god about frog legs or something.
Oh. Okay.
That he asked me about, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that seems balanced too. Like if you want to do that, and it didn't come up, so I'm not sure.
Oh. Yeah.
It's like every day he has to roll a dice, the character, and if it's like a 1 or something, then he has like frog legs, and then he can jump but can't walk very well.
Okay. All right.
On that day, I'm like, yeah, sure, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever.
In a situation like that and running a one-shot, did you have to worry about how these characters would fit into the world of that one-shot? Because I know when we were talking about Mornheim, we were really talking about how these characters might fit into this world.
Yeah.
Was it different for this one-shot?
Yeah, I had decided not to fight that battle and just let them play what they wanted to play.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
not shape it too much. And I did give it a location in Halcyon, but I didn't. It really wasn't about the world that much. It was really just a pretty solitary adventure.
Yep.
The only thing I did do was I required them to assume they'd already known each other. You're not strangers in a bar.
Yeah.
And I made one of them a noble from the city that the adventure took place.
Okay.
Gave them a family connection to the adventure.
Yeah.
So it was very practical. So the only requirements I had were very like, let's get the adventure started because we don't have time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. You're on a time limit and you got to get it done.
One of the less experienced members had played a moderate amount of D&D, a lot of 3rd edition, had played some 5th edition, but had only made like one character, I think, before. And so they brought a book and brought dice, just needed to be talked through the details of how to make the character. And they had really good questions. So it's really a different challenge, like helping someone make a character, because
Yeah.
sometimes you have to explain everything. Like everything. Like here's what an ability score is, and here's what the bonus is, and here's
Right.
this person knew all that
Okay.
stuff. So knew how to play the game, but didn't remember the process on how to make a character.
Okay.
And so that was a lot easier than I expected. It took longer, I think, but it was just because it takes longer.
Yeah.
And they made a druid. And so there was some fidgety decision making around all that, spells and all that.
And were they making this character like just with the books, or did they have like D&D Beyond or anything like that?
Just the books.
Just the books. Okay.
Yeah. I had D&D Beyond up to help me guide through the process, but they didn't.
Okay.
And then the other gamer who showed up early, who I've gamed with a long time, they just made a character on the spot also, but didn't require much hand holding. And it was funny because with the first one that I was helping that needed more help, I was like, no feats, just no fidgety stuff.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
just. They did use Volos just because they wanted a Furbolg. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, that's not a problem. But then with the other one, who was the experienced D&D gamer, just made their character and used feats and min-maxed. And it was an opportunity for them to try a build.
Sure. Yeah.
Which I didn't anticipate, but I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, that's the way they showed up to have fun.
Exactly.
And that was great.
And it sounds so great because all these disparate takes on character creation and what people want out of it or expect out of it, and some people may not expect anything if they're brand new. They don't know what to expect. That's so much fun.
Oh, and speaking of which, the non-committal player texted 20 minutes before the game was supposed to start, so we were already well through the character creation. And was like, okay, I'm on my way, but I'm gonna be there in just a little bit, but I don't have a character. I'm like,
okay.
All right. I had D&D Beyond up, and I was like, okay, I know there's always a rogue. I think they're, from what I remember, I've never played one, but I think they're pretty simple. I know that sneak attack works pretty well. So I did like the auto create of the rogue.
Okay.
And it worked. It was a pretty good character. The only funny thing that it created though was that it didn't train in stealth. So this character had like an 18, I think a 20 in fact, because I had added the attributes to Dex. But they weren't trained in stealth, so we just fixed that. I'm like, that makes no sense. Like, why are you gonna have a Dex 20 rogue with? And I think a thief. In fact, I think they were a thief of the archetype because I wasn't gonna give them spells.
A totally unstealthy thief.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the only like
Maybe not.
flaw with D&D Beyond. Like, it worked really well. Anyway, all of that, and we got everyone there. We got them settled in, and we started about half an hour late once everyone got settled. Got their characters ready and all that. So,
did the starting late lead to any sort of crunch time at the end?
it did. Yeah, no, it definitely did.
Oh, okay.
We actually ended about half an hour late as well, and I was really thankful that everyone was able to stay a little bit. Like I'd asked for 4 hours, and it was like 1 to 5 was our usual, my usual time that I like, and so I'd asked for 1 to 5, and it was like 5:30 by the time we wrapped up. I had to make some adjustments. So in this adventure in Banshee's Tale, the hook is essentially you're invited by this very successful family who's been running the county for 500 years, very in great prosperity and kindness, and everyone loves them. But now their crypts are filled with undead. So the hook is go figure that out.
Okay.
It's cool. What I liked about it, what I picked it, was that it's just a nice, clean dungeon. It's like a 9-room dungeon.
Yeah.
There is some branches and stuff, but it's not a labyrinth or anything. It's undead, so I like using undead quite a lot. And it's kind of accessible to just get into. Like, you get it. Like you understand why you would want to do that and why it's important. The other part of the hook is that the Banshee keeps showing up and telling people to leave or die.
Oh.
The mythological Banshee is, or at least the D&D Banshee, is very destructive and evil. So part of the adventure is figuring out what the Banshee is talking about or what they're concerned about.
Right.
And so the party went in, and the first kind of big battle that's in the first main crypt room, and there's quite a few zombies in there, zombies and crawling hands. And it was like halfway through the battle, and the player who hadn't played D&D very much before, but had played other role-playing games, including Vampire, was starting to ask questions like, we're not actually getting further in our quest to solve this puzzle by killing zombies. And now in D&D terms, because D&D is a little like a musical.
Yeah.
It's like combat advances the story, just like in a musical.
Right.
The songs advance the story in a good one. And so I'm like, well, no, you are. And I think everyone else got it. I'm like, no, we just have to do this so we can go explore
interesting. Yeah.
the other things. And they finished the battle, and then they were like something to the effect of, we should go talk to this family more because something's not adding up down here. This is where I metagamed. I just kind of took the curtain down for a second. It was like, normally in an adventure, that would be awesome. This is pretty linear because we have 3 more hours, or probably less by then, to solve the thing.
Yeah,
so, and they got it. They were totally cool with that then. But that was one of the concessions I had to make because of time. No, you will never. We will totally run out of time if you leave. You cannot leave the dungeon.
Exactly. Yeah.
In retrospect, I could have sealed them in there, I guess, but I didn't want to. I didn't think of that. Maybe it wasn't necessary, but
I think too with a newer player like that, it's good to kind of take that veil down a little bit and give them this is the way this runs. And then they're like, oh, okay, now I know the way these kind of things are supposed to roll. So I think that's a good idea.
Remember earlier in this episode I mentioned that it's really for 5th level characters.
Yes.
And they encountered, it was 2 ghosts.
Oh my.
And ghosts in D&D are tough.
Yes.
We were actually a little behind on time anyway, so I had already decided to thin that out to 1 ghost. And already, so that ghost immediaty, the thing that they do is they possess their characters. Right. And it is very difficult to get them out. Once you if they miss the saving throw, and they didn't have a cleric, so the way it works is that the ghost can possess a character. I think they get a saving throw, I would presume. And they had failed the saving throw. The thing is, this party didn't have a cleric. They had a druid, but not a cleric. So there was no... The ghost can leave the body, or when the body has 0 hit points, the ghost will be forced out.
Right.
Or dispel evil or something. Cast spell will make... Those are the 3 ways. And they didn't have so with no cleric, there was no turning. There was no dispel evil spell available to them. And so they could have fought this character down to 0 hit points. But nobody was keen on that idea.
No, it's not an attractive choice.
No. And I was a little more worried about time in that case of boy, are we going to have them just beat down this character? And I was thinking about how to handle that. And Well, the first thing that someone tried to do was cast Dispel Magic. Were they a wizard? I can't remember. But anyway, they had Dispel Magic, a 3rd level spell. Pretty cool 3rd level spell. But the thing is, rules as written, Dispel Magic is for spell effects.
Right.
This is the second time that I've seen this happen, where the party gets in a critical moment where there's some effect that's really got them screwed, and they think Dispel Magic is the solution to the problem. And I just didn't have the heart to say no. Because the way it is like, if the spell is of X level, I think 3rd level or below, it just works. If it's higher than that, might be 2nd level, I don't remember. That adds to the saving throw. Like, they have to do a saving throw, and it adds to the difficulty. So I just made the difficulty, moderately difficult.
Okay.
I'd added some to it based on the power. I think based on the CR rating of the ghost. I just said, it's a CR 4 monster. Fine, that's a 4th level spell, which is pretty powerful. So I was like, okay, that'll give him a chance. I felt kind of like I was a softie on it, and then they didn't roll well enough to based on that modeling.
Oh no!
So they were able to try, but it didn't work, which I was kind of happy about, frankly, because I was like, that's not how you're supposed to do it. But they felt empowered to try.
Yep.
But they lost the slot. The slot went into nothing.
Yeah.
The 3rd level slot. So finally, the rogue intimidated the ghost and rolled really well. And so that I felt pretty good. It rolled in the 20s, I think, an intimidation check and so they were able to essentially kind of browbeat the ghost into leaving their friend's body. And so that gave me the mask that the ghost was just afraid of that character now.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So they just fled through the wall, and the ghost did. Anyway, that was like a tricky encounter, especially with the time limit. That was supposed to be twice as difficult. And wasn't. But
that's one of those things where your DM mind really starts to spin, right? Like, you're saying, like, oh, what can I do to ameliorate the situation, but not give them, give them a freebie.
Yeah, totally. There were 2 rooms left in the dungeon after the ghost. One was with the Banshee, and we were able to essentially do that. Oh, I should have warned people, but spoilers. The ultimate spoiler now of this module. The Banshee was the husband of the founder of the noble house.
Okay.
From 500 years ago. The founder had essentially made a deal with Orcus.
Ooh.
For prosperity for 500 years. The deal was coming due, and Orcus was really into undead and death. So that's why all the undead were coming to become part of this army for Orcus that the husband, Sloane, would lead. And so the Banshee was not down for all this. And so she was trying to warn people that they had to flee because the undead army was going to kill them.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, right? I did too. And the group did too. I think it was a fun payoff.
Yeah.
Though they figured it out, and I kind of love this. They guessed it, in the first room of the dungeon. There's, paintings or something of the family, feeding the hungry and whatever, doing all these good things. And somebody in the party was like, oh, they have a dark secret, don't they? Ooh. Yes.
Maybe.
You guessed it. Anyway, talked to the Banshee, and they went in, and they then found a Wraith. So this was Sloane, the Wraith, who had made the deal. And that was kind of the boss. That was the boss. So we had enough time for basically a boss battle. Though I thinned it out a little bit. There was supposed to be a Ghast in there as well. And I just didn't include the Ghast because I wanted it to be pretty quick.
Yeah.
And they did some clever things. I won't go into the detail about it. But it was a fun encounter. It still was fun and felt scary to them.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I narrated it in such a way that it was able to kind of end in a pretty satisfying way.
That's great.
Now that I told you the kind of plot of it and how it went, there's a couple things. The first is that this adventure would have made a great hook to begin a campaign with, or maybe to start a new adventure with. Because now this kind of magical protection of this land has ended. Orcus's magic had led to this prosperity. That's over.
Yeah.
And what a time for adventurers, right? To maybe protect your home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I often I've been thinking a lot about the structure of normal D&D is for strangers to come into a town and solve the town's problems and then leave again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which that's not the worst thing in the world, but it's got some problematic potential in there because the people don't have their don't have agency.
Yep.
And so I thought this would have been a great way. And actually this adventure is structured that very same way. I added the connections to the party. But this adventure could easily be your own hometown.
Yeah.
And now you have to protect your home now that evil has been waiting for you.
Yeah.
There were some good hooks in there that I think could have been played on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's a plus for sure. One thing, and I think this might be a little bit back to the Uncaged book in general, there's some block text at the beginning of the adventure, which is fine. It sets the setting of the town, kind of talks about the cool breeze and the way things look. But there's no box text about the crypt.
Oh,
and so something that I'm not great at is really adding in layers of texture and foreboding and like how does it feel to be in this dark crypt where you can't see anything.
Right.
And I feel like some box text there is where I would have really wanted it.
Yeah.
To help me describe the location in a scary way.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't terrible. Like, there were descriptions, but I just felt like there was an opportunity there to help me be a better DM.
Exactly.
Some of that language.
Yeah. That stuff can really help if you're having a problem kind of getting a handle on the atmosphere. To have hints and suggestions from the authors and the writers can just help you get creative and spin off other ideas. Even if you end up not really using the text as they write it down, it can help you come up with other stuff.
And I wonder, Galen, calling upon your experience, having run, a gothic adventure, super adventure with the Curse of Strahd, how easy was it for you to maintain the tone throughout that campaign?
It was pretty easy. I think Strahd was a really tight adventure. It was really well written. I also have an affinity for that kind of material, that sort of gothic horror thing. I kind of have that in my bones. So it was easy for me to kind of, as I read that block text, to like easily get an idea of what they were trying to do with it, what they're trying to say in each individual spot.
Yeah, that's cool. And because I feel like I always default back to neutral. And so if I'm not really paying attention and it's supposed to be scary, I will forget to add in the layers of scary.
Yeah.
And in this current adventure that we're playing in Mornheim, I have to watch out not to revert back to like normal D&D as far as tone and keep Mornheim with a Mornheim feel to it. When an adventure kind of has stuff in there for me, it just helps me not have to think about it as much.
Right. I was recently reading some old modules for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay First Edition, some of their old stuff, and they don't do a lot of block text. They do some, but what they do say is in the different beats or acts of the adventure, they say, this beat is all about increasing a sense of tension in your players. And this next one is like, this beat is time to now get them to relax a little bit before the next thing. And that stuff I find really helpful.
I love telling me the purpose or telling, what is the purpose of this? Like, and then here's how we want you to do it, or here's a suggestion on how to do it, and here's some details or something. I love that. Actually, I think all adventures would benefit from a little more of that.
I agree.
Yeah, so I think that's all about the adventure. There was one more thing that I wanted to mention. When the players came together, I was very thoughtful about the introductions because they some of them knew each other casually, some had never met or had only barely met or whatever. And this doesn't come up very much in my D&D games because I'm usually kind of playing longer campaigns. But in this case, I knew that one of the players was non-binary, and I didn't specifically know about the others. I thought I knew about one. So anyway, I asked everyone to give their name, their pronouns, and a little bit about their gaming history. And so it turned out that two of them who I thought I knew what their pronouns were, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And then two were as expected. One uses he, him, and one they, them. Anyway, it just worked beautifully. And then giving that hook about what your gaming background is, lets people just talk about themselves for a second, which people like to do, and it helped me tune into what their gaming history was. Like that player who played Vampire. They know role-playing games. They just don't know D&D.
Yep.
The thing about Vampire and those World of Darkness games is that they're kind of urban fantasy, and they're much more realistic. They're not that tactical.
Right.
And so they weren't thinking in tactical terms. So that also was part of why I broke that fourth wall and mentioned it's linear. Just explore the dungeon and the mystery will be solved. So.
I think mainly when I think about D&D, I think about the longer campaign thing and how it is important to make sure that your players get to know each other.
Yeah.
But thinking about it now in a one-shot, how much more important it is to give something that they can glom onto, that gaming history thing, I think is great. It gives people a chance to talk about themselves, and then it could bring up connections. People may have played games,
Great point.
the similar games with each other that, it's like, oh yeah, I remember I played that a long time ago. And it can just, start that social lubrication for the players before they start having to try and interact with each other through rules.
Yeah, because I have played in those one-shots where you never actually learn the players' names. And you never know anything about them as human beings. And that's, whatever, but I just think it's a social game, and so we should encounter each other as people. I think that's preferred.
Agreed. Yeah.
I think that's a great note maybe to wrap this up on.
Yeah.
So if you are listening to this on podcast, we really appreciate those reviews, especially 5-star reviews through Apple Podcasts. That helps people find us. If you're watching this on YouTube, same deal. If you like the content, please click the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. And Galen, what should they do if they're watching us on Twitch?
If you're watching on Twitch and you enjoy what you see here, you get that follow button up top. You get notifications of when we go live. You can also contact me if you'd like to on Twitter at Zobmie, Zobmie. Hit me up with any questions you have regarding the show, topics you may want us to consider in the future as well.
Yeah, great. And I'm on Twitter as well, so at Contclockwise, CONTCLOCKWISE.
All right, folks. Well, until next time, take care of each other.
And game great.
Bye-bye.